Ever since I read the description for Neliwon River in Andy Embek's Alaska Whitewater Guide, Fast and Cold, it left an impression on me. I wouldn't say I was obsessed with it because it sounded too scary, but I was aware of it. He writes, "The Neliwon is one of the most demanding and rewarding rivers in the world. A very challenging, multidimensional, experts-only run on a strikingly beautiful, absolutely pristine stream." So, that's compelling. And then he describes how hard it is to access, how hard the portages are, how the rapids are lethal and unrunnable in some of the canyons. But with an older guide like this, it's easy to start questioning, the equipment has changed so much. And he went to high water. Maybe at low water, those are actually class 4 rapids. So Jeremy Wood, Pat Galt, and myself geared up with pack rafts to go check it out. And his description is pretty spot on. There's a bunch of gnarly water in there, even at low water.
No, it's so gnarly.
So we hike up to Neliwon Lake and then start the next day working our way down the river, and pretty nervous, not sure what we're going to get into. And within a half mile of the lake, the river chokes down to 20 feet. And there's a river-wide rapid, first rapid. And we're in it. And you kind of have two options in this kind of water. You can either choose to portage like the entire canyon, or you can portage the kind of guard rapid at the start of the canyon and commit to being in the canyon and anticipate portaging other rapids within it. And we'd get to that guard rapid and it was nasty, class 5, class 6. And pretty refreshingly, we're all totally on the same page. Just like, no, don't want to have anything to do with that. And if there's anything like that inside the canyon, don't really want to be in there. So we just deflated our boats and walked around 5 of the 7 canyons. They average about half a mile. But they're hard portages. You got to go out of your way and climb quite a bit and potentially get cliffed out. Or at least we got cliffed out several times. But then the water between the rapids was awesome. We ended up paddling probably 17 out of the 20 miles to reach Kings Bay. And super scenic, class 3, class 4, and then the 2 canyons that didn't have guard rapids, we were able to boat scout, shore scout, and get through. It was awesome. And one of the coolest things was that we were able to do this all and not be scared. Like, the decisions were easy. We'd look at these rapids and be like, oh hell no. and on the same page about it. Super, just ideal conditions in it. Risk assessment is such a big part of any wilderness trip. Gosh, anything anywhere in Alaska. So it was super cool to go in there as a team and make easy decisions that felt right and turned out right at the end of the day.
Hell yeah.
We reached Kings Bay around midnight. We'd been out maybe 13 hours, so a long day. Probably about half of that was spent on the portages and half of that was in the water. Kings Bay is awesome. It's really cool to paddle into Prince William Sound, into the ocean, and spend the night. We're pretty slow to start in the morning after a couple hard days, but motivated to get off the coast because bad weather is supposed to move in. And This is kind of an, well, gosh, it's all an unknown, but this is another unknown for this loop that we planned out. We've got to make a steep climb through thick forest to access the Alpine. And once we get to the Alpine, it's great travel, like these terraced lakes and some snow to walk on, and eventually we have to down climb this deglaciated rock this just seems like fresh rock just recently exposed, and then cross Wolverine Glacier. It's just like this checklist, like this is a pack rafting trip. It's like post hole, check, down climb, check, glacier crossing, check, class 4 rapids, check, class 5 portage, check, everything. Our objective this day is to get over the pass off the ocean side and get into the Snow River drainage. There's a public use cabin there on Upper Paradise Lake. We get there, the wind starts blowing, rain falls off and on throughout the night, and just cozied up in this cabin. It felt so good. As much as anything else, this felt like a major trip planning accomplishment, which is pretty cool since I enjoy that part so much. So we're at the cabin. We've got what we anticipate to be kind of what I anticipate to be kind of an easy exit on Snow River. We know there's a mandatory portage at the end around some waterfalls, but I think it's going to be pretty straightforward. And it is pretty straightforward, but it doesn't take long at all for me to realize that Snow River has got it's a treat. It's super cool on its own. A couple little canyon sections, a class 3 rapid, class 4 rapid, and then other canyon sections without any rapids. They're just like comfortable. We just have a great day on the water.
Pretty river, definitely river wide.
Well, the rocks and the
Sounds good. That's fun.
Eventually we get to our mandatory portage, and it's only 2.5 miles, but man, it is brutal. It must be a better way to go than we went. It took us about 4 hours, I think, to cover those 2.5 miles. I'm a little torn about sharing this stuff about Neliwon because it is kind of this wild gem. It's protected by Embic's description, and there's no pictures or video of it online. But gosh, it's in a guidebook. I kind of feel like it's fair game. And his description's spot on. Like, it's class 5. You have to be highly skilled. You have to be highly motivated, and you have to be good at risk assessment. Those things are gonna keep guarding the Neliwon, I think. Pack rafts were an awesome vessel for this, but it was still a hard trip. Hard and rewarding. It was awesome.